In shaming cult leaders, are we shaming kink?
Okay, you either have to sign on before we give you the presentation or leave now. The original Temple movie included long excerpts from Disney's Fantasia.
This is my first week trying to not wear makeup with the new HD camera because I feel like the camera makes us look glam enough. What do you guys think?
Hi, welcome to Zelf on the Shelf. I'm Tanner.
I'm Sam.
And this is Banksy.
He'll be here for the rest of the video while we talk about underwear.
You got bankrolled, okay? This is just going to be a Banksy video.
Our last video about Shannon Blake, half the comments were talking about Banksy.
Yeah.
Actually, our recent video, Banksy is developing quite the fan club, which we love to see, and I really think we need merch.
Yeah, Bernie is not so camera attentive.
Yeah, Banksy just plops himself down and is like, I'll be the star of this now. Keep doing your little chatter.
Are you Team Banksy or Team Bernie? Let us know in the comments.
I mean, but we're all Team Banksy, right? We love Bernie. He's so small.
As president of the Bernie fan club.
Yeah.
I do love Banksy too, though. It was a long time developing our friendship. Where
But
Bernie
once
and
you
I
get
clicked
there,
instantly.
Yeah.
And you would say that to me. You're like, trust me,
Mhm.
once you spend enough time getting to know Banksy, you'll find
I say that
him
to
be
everyone.
there.
I say, Bernie's going to be the manic pixie dream girl for you right off the bat. He's going to be the one that wins you over. But Banksy is the true, deep, enlightened love that we've all been searching for our whole lives.
Though I will say Banksy's become much more social over the years.
He's very social.
He
now,
realizes
isn't he?
that people will give him pets and treats. And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
actually.
I like to think I really have a special gift with cats because Jack is also so out of his shell now.
Coming out of his shell and he's doing
Doing
just fine.
He's camping in the spare room right now. We bought a kid's
Aw.
tent from IKEA and set it up for them. All right. Well, we're talking about...
If it was Andrew Huberman's cat, he would never go camping.
When I was camping this weekend in Goblin Valley, I was literally thinking about Andrew Huberman and I was like, oh, it just feels so good to have actually got on a camping trip, and the fact that I'm not coerced into dog sitting right now is such a gift.
That you got an actual cat sitter
Yeah.
and didn't trick
Yeah.
them into a...
It's so nice to just go on the trip, you know? We're talking about Mormon underwear today, the LDS temple garment, because the church is doubling down on how much members have to wear them, which is kind of wild to me because I don't think it's going to go well. I think a lot of people feel that Mormon underwear is very culty and it makes them uncomfortable, and also it's hot as shit.
Yep. I had to wear them every day while I walked the streets of the equator. So
People have different relationships with garments, right? But I feel like nobody is obsessed with them. Some people do like love the concept. There's an appeal, but I feel like for most people, they are difficult and annoying, especially for women.
which I feel like is the whole idea. It's
Right.
like a chastity belt. It's supposed to be hard so that you can
Yep.
have the benefit of Jesus's even greater access to his mercy and love. Because before, he was only kind of merciful. If you're not wearing church brand blessed underwear, he's like, I will give you some mercy, but not all of it. He's on the cross and he's like, let me check your underwear.
Who said that the garments would protect you from fire? Who said that?
There's been a
Or
lot
being
of
burned at the second coming?
okay.
Is that
This is probably a discussion we need to have because most Mormons would balk at the term magic underwear. It seems like,
yes.
you know, to them intentionally pejorative, let's
But
say,
do you know
or
what?
reductive.
When I was a Mormon blogger, I wrote an article about garments that was obviously through a faith promoting lens, because at the time the church had just released pictures of what like LDS temple clothing was, because it was basically getting leaked and they were like, we got to control the narrative. And the church, like someone from the church's PR team reached out to us and was like, we want to help you with your SEO on this piece because we want your result to come up. So they had us like put Mormon underwear in it a bunch.
They're capitalizing on the SEO.
Yes.
Smart.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So they don't like magic underwear, but I mean, let's call a spade a spade.
Let's. And so this isn't me like pointing at another culture and being like, my culture is smart, yours is dumb. This is someone who literally wore garments and grew up seeing it as part of my thing, have like deeply delighted, as I wrote in my journal, which we can read.
Yes, we're
in
reading
the wearing
Tanner's journal
of the
entry from when
garment.
he got his garments.
As an insider, someone who's been there, sharing my experience, it is magic underwear. Like magic, we hate to see ourselves in the mirror, and Mormons are especially that way. Like you can confront them with what their thing is, but because it's not said in the jargon that they recognize, they're like, well, we don't believe that. And you're like,
Mhm.
you
And that's
do,
hate
you just have
speech.
special words
Mhm.
for it.
Mhm.
But when it's presented to you in like a more objective way, let's say, you recognize the strangeness
You
of
do
it.
have magical thinking around this piece of underwear.
Exactly.
So it is magic underwear.
And they literally believe in all kinds of magic artifacts. So like to be like, oh, we don't believe in magic underwear. We believe in magic swords, magic plates, magic stones, magic submarines, magic, you know, all this stuff that like could not possibly happen in the real world. They're just like, well, that's not magic. That's just miracles. And it's like, yeah, that's magic. When things are happening outside of the laws of nature as commonly observed, like, you know, people walking on water, turning water to wine, all these magic tricks that are like very like so deeply serious to us, but like an outsider's like, no, that's just as silly as like a Hindu guru who lives for 40 years buried underground and comes out and is like, I didn't eat or anything. And everyone's like, wow, that's
Are you
crazy.
talking about Marianne Williamson?
Or flying, or, you know, there's all kinds of, I am talking about Marianne Williamson.
She spent 10 days in breathless meditation next to the decaying corpse of the last Dalai Lama. And what she learned about universal health care is going to change America, guys.
This year, we're going to see a miracle. I know it. Banksy is voting, Marianne. Anyway, so long story short, Mormons believe, they're like, we don't believe it's just a piece of cloth, right? It's our belief about it and the things that it gives us power to do that is what is special about him. It's not magic. And you're like, that is what magic is.
It's not magic. It's just that you have to do a very specific magic ritual to even dispose of them. And if they ever touch the floor, that's maybe questionable.
Like literally,
and also they'll protect you from being burned at the second coming. And if you don't wear it, you will be cursed, or you won't be getting blessings. Let's just put it that way.
You will not get the full access to
You
the
will be
Savior's
punished.
mercy.
Yeah.
Trademark.
You are basically a wide open door for Satan if you're not wearing your garments.
Pretty much.
At any moment, which the church is now doubling down on, which I find very interesting because I feel like they've been getting more progressive. So the Tribune did an article, the title of which is LDS Leaders Alter Temple Recommend Questions to Make It Clear. No room for personal interpretation on garments. New statements tells members they are to be worn day and night throughout your life. So the temple recommend questions are basically part of the interview that Mormons have to have with a bishop, like once a year, to prove that they're worthy to enter the temple. And what did it say in the past? It was just like, do you like honor the covenants you made about your garments, right? It was kind of...
Yeah, though the interesting things some people have observed, and I can't name them directly, I don't remember, but that and I have gone back to check, that you actually don't make a covenant to wear the garment in the temple. That is not a specific thing you promise. It's just an expectation that's laid out for you.
Yeah, by the church.
Yeah.
But
so that's interesting. So it's sort of a symbol of your experience in the temple and the connected things to, you know, keep the law of chastity, probably first and foremost. It's like, yeah, it might be kind of a hard time hooking up with somebody, you know, having a unchaste moment, getting through the garment. And that is true. I have seen garments on someone and been like, not interested.
I'm actually fine.
It worked. It was a repellent.
Yeah, not sexy.
So, but you don't specifically say.
Well, now Tanner, they're now asking. Oh, it says until now, the church's online handbook has directed leaders to ask temple goers if they wear the garment as instructed in the endowment. The new question is, do you keep the covenants that you made in the temple? The new statement, to be read to every recommend seeker, says the sacred underclothing reminds us of the veil of the temple, and that veil is symbolic of Jesus Christ. The instruction is to wear the garment day and night throughout your life, when it must be removed for activities that cannot reasonably be done while wearing the garment, which are sex, showering, and sweating, right?
Yeah, there are a few cultural rules there. I love how they say, like, as instructed in the temple. The temple just basically says they are to be worn throughout your life. It's like, you guys need to be better at interpreting that very vague advice, okay?
Well, maybe this instruction is now in, because it says as instruction. Yeah.
But that is all the instructions. So then they make up these rules in the church halls that are like sex, swimming, though there are Mormons who have historically said that the garment should stay on during sex, because the original garment, as we can maybe show here, as designed by Joseph Smith and others, just was a agender article of clothing that just had
timeless,
a hole
piece.
in the crotch for like full utilitarian purposes. It's like anything you need to do down there can be done. Like,
yeah, I think to most modern members, they are not having sex with their garments on. That's we're not painting it as any kind of expectation in any like recent history, but it did happen. And we have to talk about how it did happen.
And I'd hear about people who would shower holding their garments. So like
not a
whatever,
cult,
they're just
guys,
like washing,
just regular stuff.
so that they're always in contact with it. Presumably because without it, they would just instantly succumb to temptation. It's like, okay, you actually have probably a disorder that's coming out in the form of scrupulosity right now, and we need to deal with that.
Which is why
but Mormons are just like, I guess if that's what you need to do to prove you're good with God, then you're gonna get good with God. Keep doing that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's definitely a perfect strategy for a high control group, right? Because the more demanding a high control group is, the more loyal you are to it. So it does make sense to me why they're doubling down, but it also is different from the approach we've seen from them lately, which is like they made the temple ceremony less sexist. They've like softened their stances on gay people in some ways. But then at the same time, there's also been, I guess they're always kind of doing that dance because they can't figure out how to stop members from leaving.
Yeah, it's tricky to be in a church that is constantly claiming to be the one true church that has all the initial intentions and ordinances of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the hidden things that were taken away by the Catholic Church and others, and that like we have prophets, seers, and revelators who know exactly what we need to be doing, and you know the Lord's course is one unchanging round, and it's always the same thing, and we shouldn't change it. But then also things are changing constantly.
But what a blessing that things are changing constantly.
Yeah, at the same time,
so blessed to have modern
that is the way it's supposed to be, and so they definitely have their cake and eat it too. But the garment is a perfect example of this. Just this totally sexless thing that was given to people going through the temple. And initially, the temple was like, it was not widespread. The vast majority of the church membership didn't know about it. It was people who were being initiated into either the Council of 50, I believe, which was Joseph Smith's alternative government that was just supposed to replace the government of the United States. No big deal. Don't worry about it. He was just crowned king of the world. It's fine. Or initiating people into the order of polygamy. And so this was like their thing of being like, we are polygamists now. And the ordeal was like the several hours long thing of him like literally bathing people, blessing each of their parts from head to heart to vitals to loins, make sure them loins get blessed.
Would Joseph Smith endow his wives? Because they are all secret, right?
So I believe even in the beginning it was done similarly to how it's done now, with men and women separated. And then,
but didn't men used to be the ones that would touch the women's parts?
I mean, initially Joseph Smith would have just like done it for everybody.
Yeah.
Because
that's kind of what I'm saying.
Oh, by the way, he came up with all of this like just a mere few weeks after entering Freemasonry. Which, sorry for the tangent. We have so many tangents.
Yeah.
Do we want to like get into all that? Or?
I mean, it's the same fucking ceremony, you guys. He's majorly plagiarizing.
Yeah, it's funny to see Joseph Smith's the anti-Masonry of the Book of Mormon, because it's in there, and initially was seen as like an anti-Masonic Bible.
It's like such a projection.
Oh, totally.
He's just like so badly wanted to be Mason.
Yeah, well, and at the time, Masons
if it was 6 weeks after, then when he wrote the Book of Mormon, then he wouldn't have been a Mason yet. So it's just like the club he secretly wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, well, and at the time, like when he wrote the Book of Mormon, there was a really strong anti-Masonic sentiment in the burned over district where he was living. They were seen as like evil secret combinations doers with the skins girded about their loins, the Masonic apron. And
but then the minute they invite Joseph into his club, he's like, actually,
well, you know, he has his career and he's just pissing off everybody in every town they go to because they're showing up and being like, hi, thanks for welcoming us to the neighborhood. It's ours now. We own it. God gave it to us.
God said it. Sorry, guys. One of those.
By the way, your wife is quite a looker. They started having like a lot of tensions with locals. And I think he saw Freemasonry as an opportunity to build some like non-Christian alliances, maybe get some like, you know, hush-hush protection, because there was a lot of like inter-mob violence on both sides. And I think he was just like, straight up looking for allies. And
he did a Masonic symbol when the mob was coming to kill him in jail, right?
Yeah. He was starting to do the Masonic call of distress, which is, oh, Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son? Could you imagine hearing someone shout that today? for me, but
it's worth a try. Anything's worth a try.
Well, it did not work. They really shut him down. And I'm not, making light of vigilante frontier justice.
No, I am. He was marrying kids. It was a different time, you guys. You can't judge them by the standards of today.
Yeah, he was marrying kids, then denied it, then burned down the printing press that was telling the truth about it, and then had to submit himself to prison where the vigilantes took their justice. The Masons in the crowd, in fact. And then for like decades, one of the temple covenants, an actual covenant that they did make, was to seek to and to teach their children to seek vengeance upon the people who killed the prophet.
That's
and
where
his
you
brother.
had to.
No, that was a different gruesome penalty.
We'll get to that.
But so they took like oaths of vengeance, like I will seek out vengeance. They were like, if we come across someone, he's like, I was there when they shot Joseph Smith. You're like, well, it is my religious obligation that I have sworn in front of my family and friends to literally kill you now. Isn't that wild?
Sorry.
So yeah, eventually that got taken out, not by revelation, but because members were like,
chilling.
The membership is always like pulling the brethren along while the brethren are like, I see so far beyond you guys.
Yeah.
And it's like Jana Reese said it perfectly in this article that change happens in the church one funeral at a time. It's like, oh, that's so real. The garment, for instance, you saw the frumpy bag that they used to wear with just crotch, and then they have the Masonic symbols stitched into them. One is the square, which is like fortitude and rightness and whatever, and then the compass, the square, the ruler, and then the knee, just the knee mark.
The knee.
Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess. This is all going back to Jesus, right? And so these marks are what make the garment sacred. And they're, of course, Masonic. Sorry, I'm jumping all the way around everything.
No, I think we're here for it.
Okay.
I do just want to say, Karenessa Petite Girlies sound off in the chat. Even if you were 5'9" and really couldn't be morally justifying buying petites.
One of the claims that Mormons make to authority is like, the Catholics changed the ordinances. For instance, you have to be baptized fully immersed in order for that to count. You can't just sprinkle water on the head. The fact that they changed that shows that they're apostate now. Well, so back in the day, the Mormons used to, fully bathe you as part of this endowment thing and pour oil on you and consecrate you and touch all your parts because it had to be a real ordinance. Now they merely do it symbolically by putting water on your forehead and giving you a drop, which is funny. But I'm glad they're not touching people anymore. Like,
yeah,
I'm glad the change was made, but it is funny to observe like this thing that was not supposed to change just changing constantly. The garment is one of those things. Joseph F. Smith, remember the F, was like, this shit cannot change. I think I have even maybe a direct quote from him.
He loved saying shit couldn't change.
Oh yeah, he was like
that was like his move.
He was like the last really like polygamous frontier Yahoo crazy cult leader in Utah. Like after that, they were kind of like, okay, we like
gotta confront been nothing but reasonable guys since then.
They're at least try to be pleasant to the masses. Oh yeah, they used to just be drinking bread and wine all the time. They were just getting hammered
literally
for Jesus.
Two of the best things.
I'm just gonna say that originally he was like, this was the way that it was given by God. Wrist to ankles, sexless, formless, hole in the crotch, these things here. It cannot change. It had a little collar. This cannot change. This is what was given by God. And then eventually, and they're like, and all attempts to make it conform to the fashions of the world are of the devil.
And now, honestly, the Karenessa Girl ones are like Skims at this point. So
yeah, so
those still ugly.
There were department stores in Utah that used to sell the garment that you could buy. You just had to show your temple recommend card and be like, they're like, okay, here's your special underwear. Now the church is the sole distributor. They've got the perfect, just like integrated marketing thing. They're like, we have a lifestyle that we'll sell to you down to your very underwear. Get your own McMansion in heaven.
It's bold Idaho. Of them, which you have to respect. Like just the boldness to be like, you have to wear this special underwear and you have to buy it from our stores for $5 a piece.
Yeah.
And you need to own like 20 of them.
Christianity invented kinkiness as Westerns know it. Like such violent repression of sexuality has just like gone off in so many weird ways. And this is one where you have Joseph who's like building this harem of subs.
Yeah, what if I
because
could get
they
them
had
all
to be like
wear
literally
the underwear I want them to
submissive
wear.
As like a theological, like you have to do this or you'll be destroyed kind of thing. And he's like, you literally have to wear this underwear your whole life. Never mind that he didn't wear it, and he could have. He wasn't wearing it the day he died, and maybe if he did, it would have helped him.
In shaming cult leaders, are we shaming kink? Is the question I think is being asked here today.
We are like one step away from hearing Kwaku argue that. Like he's going to be doing that in 2 weeks from now. He's like, you are literally shaming a neurodivergent and a minor and a kinky polyamorous person. But yeah, definitely like the most apparent mechanism of control of a high control group is like the Mormon church always wants to be between you and everything else. It has to be like on your skin. It needs you to be wearing it constantly and always creating this paranoia about the outside world that like everything is out to get you and the power of the destroyer that's going to either harm you physically. And I'm not saying that this will magically protecting you, but I'm not saying it won't. I'm just saying it couldn't hurt. And you're likely to get more mercy from Jesus if you do. So just do it. Remember, the destroyer is always trying to get you. I was like very conditioned to associate like the garment with adults. Like I grew up seeing my dad in his garments every day with the little like swoop neck, right?
Would your parents keep their garments white, or were they the type that would let them? Because I feel like a big thing that really grosses me out about garments is I feel like people's parents would not replace them, and they would be so yellow from like a decade of. I just like can't.
No, they were.
bear to think
My
about
parents
it.
were good launderers.
Good.
Yeah.
I like to hear that. They seem actually like they would be.
Yeah. So when I finally, should we read my journal?
Oh my God. Yeah. I wish I had mine. I only wore garments for like 2 months because then I was like, well, this is a cult. And I think wearing the magic underwear certainly didn't hurt when it came to me having that realization. Also, just for those of you that this is totally new to, and just so you understand how batshit this is, even though this all sounds so batshit already, there would literally, when I was in Mormonism, there would be debates in Relief Society about whether you would wear the garment, your garments over or under your bra. Like people would wear like this, you know, like spandex or whatever material, spandex or worse, top with a bra over it.
Sound off if you ever had a
Tell us if you were an over
family
or under
member
bra.
or a member of your ward feel your like sleeve line or your pant leg to see if you had gone through the temple. That was like a commonly said thing.
Do you know what this is reminding me of? Amber Fillerup was like a really big, she was like the Mormon blogger back in the day, but she was also like bigger than just Mormonism. There was always debate going on about whether it was okay that influencers like Amber Fillerup wouldn't wear their garments for certain photo shoots because they would be like, well, I'm modeling, it's a job, you know, whatever. And I was like pretty judgmental of influencers that didn't wear their garments.
Jesus didn't wear his garments for photo shoots all the time. We're like always seeing his pecs and like abs and even his like cum gutters, you know?
It's fine if it's for Jesus, though, obviously. Anyway.
That thing of BYU, like on their modesty page, it's like, if you have long hair or facial hair or no shirt or no shoes, you're not allowed on this campus. Right next to a picture of Jesus with long hair, facial hair, no shirt, no shoes.
Yeah. I was just going to say that Amber Fillerup went on Girls Camp podcast, which was just a really fun full circle moment for me. I feel like Amber Fillerup alone did a lot to facilitate debate that has continued over the years about garments. And how much women should have to wear their garments. And people would either like really align with her and I think have been really influenced by her, like coming out more and more about her loss of faith. And then the other camp would just be like so demonizing of her. And she said it would just be like constant abuse in her comment section from like Mormon 50-year-old women. And she's like, you know, there's like 25-year-old girl who's just like modeling stuff that Brown sent her. And it would just be like an onslaught of abuse.
Which really just shows you like how rooted in shame the whole thing is.
So rooted in shame, yeah. And such a great tool for getting members to monitor each other obsessively. Like it's so normal in Mormonism for people, like people who have left the church will be so nervous to go over to their parents' house because their parents will know that they're not wearing magic underwear because there's ways you can tell. And Mormons are very good at checking for it. They know what to look for. Chilling.
Isn't that kind of it?
Cringe.
You're always kind of having to evaluate your righteousness in relation to everybody else's righteousness. And every single person in the church finds their like things that they're like the best at or, you know, in other ways that.
And anything less is like not, because you are only ever believing that you are at best just passing. So anyone ever who's doing anything less than you're doing is automatically not doing good enough because you're barely doing good enough, because even thinking that you're doing good enough is like not really doing good enough.
But you know, just trying is the best that there is. Now being ex-Mormon, that is the true bad thing. It's your journal. This is my journal.
Woohoo! So you're 19, about to go on your mission.
19, yeah. I'd done a year of college, was so hyper religious at the time, you would not believe. Reading my journal outside of this stuff was really kind of low-key triggering for other reasons I can't get into, but also seeing how into it I was and like the mechanisms at play and seeing me grapple with things and like constantly like self-shaming and self-belittling over things that were just like not right, that were like somebody else not taking accountability. Me being like, oh, someone's like manipulation of me is I just need to be like more loving and friendly about
honestly,
it.
me right now.
Yeah. So in that, like, I'm hyper Mormon. I'm reading not just The Holy Temple by Boyd K. Packer, but also Boyd K. Packer's biography and Bruce R. McConkie's biography and A Disciple's Life about Neil A. Maxwell, his biography, Ezra Taft Benson's biography, and Howard W. Hunter and Gordon B. Hinckley. I was like in the Institute
Normal
library
teen reading
every single day, just like reading and being like church. And I wasn't reading. I was like singing next to the piano with my friends and crying about hymns, or singing in the nursing home and crying with my friends. And that was really, that was sweet. I do love
singing in
that,
the nursing home though. That was a good time.
Probably one of the best parts, though not an official church gathering, right? But so I'm like fully steeped and on board with this and like trying to prepare to enter the temple. And when I got in, I still had no reasonable expectation for what's going to go on there. It was like, for having prepared my whole life, the method that people most chose to prepare me was by being like, it's all very symbolic and you'll be like, learn over a long time what it all means.
Yeah.
What that meant is nobody knows what they mean and you're not supposed to really
It's
talk
just
about it. So
fucking
everyone
weird.
gets to make up their own little meanings for it and then feel like that they're gaining this mystical wisdom. But that's not necessarily universal truth that they're gaining, because everyone is doing that in their subjective way and you're not allowed to talk about it.
And in the temple, it's really quiet, so you can't really get into it either.
Right.
Oh, it's the perfect thing, isn't it?
It is. It's so.
And that's another thing that I feel like has got less aggressive over time. Even from when I joined the church versus when I left, like over the span of 6 years, I feel like the amount people would talk about the temple changed quite a bit. It went from like, we literally cannot talk about anything that goes on within the ceremony, to people sharing some stuff.
We went from, if you talk about this, you'll have your tongue ripped out by its roots, you'll have your throat slit, and you're there pantomiming, and I'll have my bowels ripped out, and everyone's just like, yes, pele el.
It's all symbolic, and you learn over time. Yeah, thankfully we didn't have to do that.
Thank you, Pale Ale, for inspiring this ceremony. I was thinking today about how the temple developed and Joseph's Masonic thing as I'm preparing for this. And I thought maybe one of the reasonable things was for it, because I was thinking about vision and how in the early church, everyone's having visions of everything. And then I'm like, well, like, by the way they're describing it, it's no different than literally me closing my eyes and like imagining a thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't do that. It is a special quality. I forget the name of it. Alex, weigh in. Some people just like don't have a visual aspect of their internal experience. Do you?
I don't think I have a very strong one compared to you, for example. But I don't resonate with people that say they have no visuals in their brain.
They're lying. They're just lying and woke.
Who are lying?
I'm just kidding.
But I bet if you could see inside my brain, you'd be like, that's pathetic. There's not a lot going on in here.
Well, and that was something that initially drew me to cannabis, is that all of a sudden I could like really see things.
Can really help.
So I was thinking about that visionary quality and being like, oh, then yeah, like I have visions all the time, and like that I just turn them into art. I'm not like, this is literally true and you all need to pay me 10% of your money or else.
Yeah.
And you must wear this for your whole life.
Journal entry.
So I'm just so Mormon, and I can't even talk about this. I can't even like bring up the fact that it makes me uncomfortable.
Are you even allowed to write about it in your journal that much? Because that's out of the temple technically too. Oh my God.
And I changed really quickly at grandma's, and Dad and I hurried to the distribution center to buy garments. You got to buy them at the special distribution center.
But you can't try them on or open them. You just have to wing it and hope that that's your size.
Yeah. Then I walked through the revolving door of the Mesa Temple for the first time. From the moment I walked in to the moment I walked out, I felt so good. Even when I saw the guy walk through in a baker's hat, it's like modern Keebler elf drag fit. He's got the green apron, and I was just like,
I am loving this. Did you actually feel so good, or are you lying in your journal?
Well, I did, because it is like Mormonism does manufacture a lot of feel-good experiences, and it's always at the cost of like putting you through so much anxiety and turmoil that the like release from that is like, oh my God, and it feels like a breakthrough, and it feels like that, but it's like, that was fun to feel that way, but I would have rather not had to go through all the unnecessary anxiety to feel that.
Totally.
It's a difference between, as I talked about in my journal, from buying lemons versus just buying lemonade. It's like, you don't have to heap unto yourselves unnecessary suffering in hopes that it like gives you righteousness, like righteousness points.
Totally.
Like my companion who argued that we should sleep on the floor because we'd be blessed for our sacrifice. I'm like, I don't think that's how justice works. If that's how God, are we just making up stuff now? Oh, this is what I was going to say before. Rather than like adequately prepare me for what to expect in the temple, a lot of people would be like, hey, just so when you get in there and you have to wrestle the snake, just remember you're doing it for the Lord, or remember when you have to dip the goat in blood. So to like try to make it sound so weird so that in comparison, my experience didn't seem that bizarre.
Were we all terrified that we were going to have to get naked? Because I know
horrified,
I was. Yeah.
Horrified.
Just the mere thought was like, but I think people told me, no, I think you told me you don't have to get naked.
Yeah, I was horrified. And I didn't even know that back in the day, people had to. I didn't know that my parents,
They had to get, under the sheet.
They had to get, they were just like naked under just like a poncho, and some dude had to bless all their body, or some woman just blessed all their body parts. Right before they had to covenant to, and then veil her face before praying to God. Yeah.
And Joseph Smith said, if the temple ceremony ever changes, then the church has lost priesthood, whatever it was that he said.
I mean, that is the attitude we were talking about before, that like this stuff is the way that it was given by God, and if we change it, then we're apostate.
But we can change
unless we
it.
change
Like
it.
we can obviously change it.
It's fine. It's changing all the time. Oh, I just remembered that Satan in the temple ceremony was always played by a person of color.
Not by the time I saw the temple.
Not by the time, the Polynesian Saints, whenever they started showing movies, were like, and you gotta hand it to the Polynesian Mormons.
They put their foot down.
They do.
They do.
They're by far the best singers. Like, when you're like in a Polynesian ward, that you're going to hear the best singing of your whole Mormon experience. The church is like, oh, it's wrong to gender bend, and men are never allowed to wear skirts. And they're like, this is a lava and it's my culture. And they're like, oh,
that's how you do it. Like, just like claim your own power, guys.
They're like, tattoos are never appropriate. They're from Satan. And the like, Maoris and stuff, they're like, actually no, this is our culture and we're gonna keep them. And they're like, yeah.
That's what Mormons need to do with not wearing garments right now. Just be like, this slutty little miniskirt, this is my culture. You can't take that away from me.
Well, and arguably, like, you could have whatever length of clothing you wanted. If you could change it from the ankle to the knee, then you can, or the wrist to the shoulder, then you can have a strap as well. Like, there is no difference other than this like arbitrary measure that you've created. Like, this much change is fine, but this much is no good.
I love how the church is like smart enough to be like, obviously we have to change the garment. Like, they've kept changing garments to be more, as I said, now it's kind of like Skims sometimes with some styles. Imagine if they tried to keep the original one. Like, but then also it's like a classic Mormon situation where there's like all this stuff about how it should never change. But
good luck getting any influencers like Ruby Frankie.
We literally can't survive unless we change. So we just have to ignore our own doctrine.
Yeah. Some Latter-day Saint in our comments the other day was like, what? If this criticism could be applied to any church. And I'm like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, and we're doing it.
And they're like, you guys should criticize the Catholic Church that's always changing to suit the day. And I'm like, my brother in Christ. There's no church that I'm aware of, and I say that having no church truly that I am more aware of than the LDS Church by just personal study and personal experience, that has changed on practically every subject in their canon, from the Trinity to monogamy to Masonry, you name it. Anyway, so we're getting into the temple, and
19-year-old Tana.
Oh, I was a cool socialist kid because while I was also doing temple prep, I read Hugh Nibley's Approaching Zion, which is like a super Mormon socialist thing. Like, Hugh Nibley is kind of he's like one of those really smart people in some ways, who's also just like so far-fetched and unhinged in another ways.
Intelligence.
Yeah, totally. But he had some like political and doctrinal views that I was like, damn. He was always calling out Pharisaism, like being like, oh yes, in the apostate church, the test of righteousness is by the length of hair and the outward appearance. And it's like, yep, that's the modern culture.
That was a big theme of our faith crisis, was that we were more drawn to that type of messaging.
Yeah. I also read around the time I found the time that Barack Obama was elected in my journal.
Gorgeous.
And I was like, even though I don't agree with him, I'm so happy for this historic moment. Like, this country has endured so much racism and oppression. And I was like, oh, damn, rare Mormon win for Tanner. So I loved being there. I love the feeling of all things in common that is felt there because, you know, everyone's
you're dressed the same.
dressed
You'll
in
believe
white.
the same
We're all wearing the
things,
same
no
underwear that's
diversity.
purchased at the same price. Okay. A woman who helped me asked if she could shake my hand and told me it was an honor to do so. It's hard because I'm not quite sure how to talk about the temple, even in my journal. I guess I'll just say that in the last phase of the endowment, it felt as real as if the Lord himself was speaking to me. I guess I didn't have a very strong developed sense of what was real at that stage in life because a lot of what I determined to be just as good as real was like, oh, that was just another person. And it felt really nice because you're like, wow, you're a stand-in and someday it'll be just like this. And it feels like that. But in reality, Jesus isn't there and you're just a person shaking hands with another person through like a linen.
Not remembering any of the stuff you're supposed to do.
Health in the navel, marrow in the bones, strength in the loins and in the sinews, power in the priesthood be upon me and upon my posterity through all generations of time and throughout all eternity. See, I can just do that.
Can I just say, when I
went a lot.
You have to do like, you have to learn all the secret handshakes, right? And then like as a woman, you like do them through the veil to a man. And I think I only did the endowment probably like 3 or 4 times total. Not very often.
Never gonna get into heaven. You're gonna forget.
Well, I know, but I remember going the first time they're like helping you through, right? And there's some old lady helping you. But then the second time, I didn't know shit. Like I didn't remember the handshakes, which I felt no shame about because I was like, obviously it's going to take a while. And I felt like I can't remember if it was even a man or woman, but I felt the person who like helped me almost seemed like put out that I like didn't know them yet and like treated me with a look. And I'm just like,
there was a lot of temple workers
like
that.
Am I supposed to have just committed this to memory? Because it's like so important that the fact that I don't know it my second time is a problem.
Oh yeah, there were so many temple workers who were like that, who were just like, it becomes their thing, you know.
It's like, well, I can only practice in here, and that's what I'm doing. So okay, so there's not a lot you can even write about in your own journal.
Yeah, right. Kind of fun. If I'm remembering correctly, my grandpa was a temple worker, so he got to be the one who like took me through for the first time, which was sweet. And then I came through. And all my like aunts and uncles were there. And it was like, oh, this will be just what heaven's like. You'll die and then you'll come through and all your loved ones will be there. And it was like, oh, that's literally so sweet. And yeah,
it looks like
all this was
America.
A lot. And I was terrified that I was going to have to get naked or accidentally get aroused at the sight of naked people on screen. I'm just so glad that this is over. And wow, so nice to be here. Oh yeah, I felt as if the Lord himself was speaking to me. The smile of the veil worker felt like the smile of my savior. So maybe it wasn't my grandpa, or maybe I would have mentioned it was him. But you never know. I walked into the celestial room and was overwhelmed with a feeling that could only be termed as celestial.
That makes sense because how often are you really in a completely quiet room that is completely sanitized? Like there's no like trace of the outside because you're even wearing like temple slippers. It's like the cleanest room ever. It's beautiful if you're into that kind of style. It's exactly what you've been conditioned to believe heaven will look and feel like. So that makes sense.
It is
like that was my favorite part, was just like being in that room.
Yeah. It literally is a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And serves that function as all cultural rites of passages do. And there are definitely degrees of harmfulness or levels of like manipulation and control. Like in the Mormon ceremony, the lack of prior consent is deeply disturbing, that you don't know what you're going to be promising until you're put on the spot in front of all your family and friends
who have often like traveled to come be here for this sort of historic rite of passage moment. So if you were to be like, actually, this makes me uncomfortable. Also, you only get a few seconds to decide.
Yeah, at the beginning, before they even tell you what's going to happen, they're like, at the beginning, they're like, if you don't want to do this, you can leave.
You got to say it now.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like before promising all your time, talents, energies, materials, and whatever to the church, you should maybe like be able to know that you're going to do that. And, you know, they do tell you like, you're going to be making some big things. So you got to be like super worthy. And the whole church is set up to like, extract as much of your time, attention, and capacity as it can. So like it just falls in line with the schema and is sort of taken for granted.
Yeah, I think apologists would say like you definitely go into the temple knowing that you're going to like commit your life to the church, to God. But it's like you're also making that promise like at one specific point in the temple ceremony. You've still got the whole rest of the temple ceremony So you don't use, there's so much you don't know. Like, I feel like you should get to decide at the very end, but it's like they need the buy-in first for, that's like classic corrupt tactic, right? Is getting buy-in before you know what you're in for.
Yep. The eternal timeshare that you're like, okay, you either have to sign on before we give you the presentation or leave now. Like, okay. My family greeted me with the highest level of approbation.
What does that mean?
A wonderfully religious word for approval.
Approbation.
I'm like, wow, it feels so good to have attention and approval from my parents. Wow.
You got to phrase
so
it like approbation. Otherwise it's vain.
Here I raise my... And I could not hold back the tears as I hugged my mom and my dad. The sorrowful emotions that filled me as I departed from my friends were equaled and surpassed by the exquisite joy that permeated my whole soul when I reunited with my family in the temple. Truly, the temple is the greatest metaphor for what heaven will be like. I can only imagine the experience of being greeted by generations of family and friends. I've never before felt so close to my ancestors until I did 20 milligrams of cannabis sativa, and then I felt so close to my ancestors.
3-day peyote fast in the desert. Okay, but it is so sad how that was a real moment for you with your parents.
Totally.
Like it's genuine family bonding is happening, and it just sucks that the church is like co-opting that and becoming like the person who doles that out. Because it just shows how much the church like comes between families, because it wants to be in control of families. It's like with Jodie Hildebrandt, she wanted to control these couples' marriages. So then she installs her. So it's kind of like, like it's not a true respect for the relationship of family. It's like wanting to like take the strength of family bonds to use as fuel for your own corrupt tank. Ugh.
Just thought of a new term, conformally. Not my family, but my conformally.
Family. Yeah. So no wonder, I mean, obvious point, but no wonder it's so hard for people to leave Mormonism, even when they know the truth claims are false, because it's so deeply interwoven into every experience they've ever had with their loved ones in many ways.
Oh, yeah. I remember getting my garments and being genuinely thrilled. I remember just like,
yeah, me too.
I didn't look in the mirror very much as a Mormon because, again, like having a body that could just betray you at any moment.
Which there is precedent for believing.
Yeah. But I remember like after having garments and having that protective layer from my own eyes and just being like, whoa, I'm an adult now. Like,
you're like, well, I have brown hair.
I'm a natural blonde.
That was a joke.
Actually, I will say, it sounded like a drop. Somebody dropped something. I did lock the door. Just Jack has been in there. Oh, Jack. That's jacked up. Oh, sorry, that was on me. I didn't think to check for any jacks. Out of the closet, huh? This isn't a metaphor for what heaven will be like. I was gonna say, I used to think that my hair parted in the other direction, and then I saw a photo of myself and was like, this isn't right. This was when I was a little kid, right? And I was like, this can't be right. My hair goes this way.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, I remember just being like, whoa, I'm an adult. This is so cool.
It does feel special and magical.
It definitely felt special and magical. I was like fully in this like, kind of like being in love, where everything is magical and you're seeing with new eyes and new colors, new sounds, and about the church and about my conversion to it. And again, while simultaneously feeling like the most stressed out and self-shaming and paranoid in connection with all that. And also like having doubts that I was like not fully freely able to express, understand, or explore, because I was just like, no, just shut it down. Like, think about like how good this all feels like, and oh, it's all so sacred and so special, and yeah, and they get the hooks in. But then after a while, like the mission definitely took off a lot of the veneer that had been set up, and was like, oh, okay, maybe a lot of this is actually more about just like choosing to follow Jesus, even though it doesn't seem very magical most of the time. Yeah, the grind.
Yeah,
and then over time, it just becomes, I think, more and more about that like making sacrifices, and yeah, we got to sacrifice, and yeah, I don't want to be at church most days, but I get up and go because I know it's good for me. And yeah, it's tough to read the scriptures every day, and it's tough to go watch. I've heard so many people, it's so hard to watch the same temple ceremony every single time. I struggled with falling asleep. Like it was
so
the lights turned off,
and
the thing came on, and I was just like, oh god, please. And you're not allowed to drink caffeine, so you're just like,
yeah.
this thing that I've like already seen so many times. It's committed to memory basically at this point. Like I know all the things and we're just supposed to keep doing it and keep doing it. I'm like, oh no.
See, I think because I only went like 3 times, there was a different movie every time. Because I think they had 4 that they would rotate between.
Nice.
It's still really boring though. It didn't really help.
Oh, I grew up on the Michael Ballum version, which many aficionados will consider the best.
Okay.
Of the
I was of the Planet Earth generation
of the franchise. The original Temple movie included long excerpts from Disney's Fantasia.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Don't really understand that.
There was like a lot of creation scene stuff.
So when you say
animals.
excerpts from Fantasia,
like they literally took the film, like 90 feet of, or however many feet of rolls of film from the movie Fantasia, and they used that for the creation portions.
There was
of
cartoon.
No, the original Fantasia, I think, had live action stuff. Or maybe it was cartoon. I don't know. I literally don't know. I haven't seen Fantasia. I don't know.
I remember us writing about that years ago when we used to blog.
Also a franchise. So probably
I genuinely am confused. Like, how would the church justify putting a piece of a Disney movie in their temple ceremony?
Well, the church is very Disney coded, Disney core. They're kind of like,
do they have to get the rights to do that? Or because
they did. Yeah, they had a deal.
That's so weird.
Yeah, weird. I feel like Disney would never do that now. Yeah. But this was like, the 50s.
That's just like some random guy that happened to be in charge then just had it. Because that just seems so out of pocket for the LDS church.
And for Disney, the most like notorious, they have like such clamps on their brand and on their copyrighted material.
Because wouldn't Disney be like, well, this movie wasn't made by 100% Mormons, so we can't possibly have it in our temple, or I don't know.
Oh, nowadays they'll take anybody.
Now they'll take
who's that guy who like molested a bunch of kids? Who made the Temple movies?
Which one?
Yeah, yeah. Sterling something also was like a big Sundance guy or something.
So strange that Fantasia was. I can't get over that.
More so than all the other stuff. That's the stuff.
Yeah, you couldn't get David Attenborough, but you put Fantasia in there.
I'm okay with the penalties. I'm okay with the ritualized nudity, with the no prior consent. But Disney Fantasia, I'm just like, how? Yeah, it's a wild, wild world in Mormon Templedom. So yeah, that was my experience. I really loved the garment. After on the mission, it was tough wearing it, but I never like at that point I was so far in that I was never like, I should like, this is weird. It was just like just the thing. It was this is what I'm gonna be wearing for the rest of my life. But then when I got to college, I started getting like weird sensory stuff with it. And I remember like one time like flipping out. The soft animal of my body was like, get me the hell out of these clothes. I was at a friend's house, and I would stay dressed up in my Sunday best all Sunday. So I'm there at a friend's house in my Sunday best, full suit, 3-piece suit, tie, garment, and I just started getting like really, really uncomfortable. And I was like, hey, do you have like some clothes I could just change into? So I changed into some casual clothes. I was just like, so then I was like, I gotta go home. I'm feeling weird.
Do you think this was your subconscious like telling you?
Fully.
That's
I went home and went to my dorm room, locked the door. It was like a shared room. So, that was another reason to always be in your garments is I like had a shared room always. And so I was like, okay, yeah, just always be in your garments. And I went to the room, locked the door, and was like in just down to my garments, took off all the other clothes and was just in my garments like normal. And then was still just like,
it's not a good reason to take him off.
So I finally just took him off. And it didn't feel like this is an act of rebellion.
Yeah.
Or even like, God knows what I'm doing. I was just like, I have
kind
to.
Of a medical emergency.
Have to do it. Yeah, medical emergency. Took him off. And then just like sat there naked for the first time in years.
I would never just sit around naked as a Mormon.
Yeah,
like,
never,
that would
never,
have felt
never.
so strange.
But I just like I had to get out of them. And even though it wasn't like a turning point in the way I approach garments, I do look back at that as like indicative.
I love stories like that because it just shows how your body is always trying to send you signals, and there's something comforting about that. Even though it didn't completely change, but it's like it's just a reminder that we should always take time to just kind of like tune in and be like, is there anything happening here that I need to be paying attention to that I may be ignoring?
Yes. What was your brief experience like?
Well, I suppose I felt like kind of cool getting them, but then was also like almost like what, even by the time I got them, I was already in some version of a faith crisis, and my faith crisis was just getting worse and worse. So it didn't, I think I fell out of love with them pretty quick. It also just felt like I had to like buy so many different kinds to try and figure out something that would work. And it just became so hard to get dressed. because like skinny jeans were still very in back then, for example.
yeah.
Even with like knee-length skirts or whatever, it's like you really have to go even longer because when you walk, you don't want to have your garments. It would make me cringe when I would see people's garments flash when they walk. So it just becomes like such a fucking nightmare to get dressed.
But that's why they want to do it,
Yeah.
so that you have to cover up so much, so that
Yeah.
you're not being walking porn.
It's also just an obscene situation to be in when you're on your period, as everyone who's gone through that will know. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of pushback about the garment has been from women who are saying that it contributes to like yeast infections. Or UTIs.
I feel like a lot of people got yeast infections from garments. Well, taking off my garments was like basically the first thing I did once I realized the church that morning where I finally let myself realize Mormonism was false. Immediately took off my garments.
Yep.
For chilies.
Yeah, I think I went to Walmart and bought some like Hanes. Like, got better stuff now.
Yeah.
Not that much better.
No, we share an Amazon account. I've seen your Calvin Kleins. They're the underwear everyone should be wearing, in my opinion.
If you want to buy my underwear, check out my alt. There's a link.
Can people actually buy your underwear?
Yeah, there's a few things listed.
Love that. Love that. Tell me if I should put my underwear for sale on Tanner's alt.
Someone actually just sent me my first thing. Someone sent me some elf ears.
Oh, I saw that.
Those
very
cute,
cool.
sexy little elves. Couldn't be doing any of that in Mormon garments.
How can I just have the people sending stuff to me system, but without the providing free content?
That is pretty much what our wish list is. But, you know.
Yeah. We're going to Texas in 2 weeks.
To collaborate with Girl Defined.
David and Bethany.
David and Bethany.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Yeah, we're going to have so much fun. I already love them, and
me too.
I can't wait.
I can't wait. I have to compartmentalize that it's happening. Otherwise, I can't focus on regular life.
Speaking of visions, I have been getting visions of the video that we're going to make. I
already know it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah. Thank you, donors. People have been actually so supportive.
Yeah, I think we still have some things on our Amazon wish list for the trip if you want to contribute. You can also, I think, just buy us anything. Thank you. You can also buy us anything, I think, without it being on our wish list. But like, be reasonable, but like, have fun with it.
We'll take treats of any kind.
Yeah, we're not picky. I do just want to talk about like the impact I imagine this is going to have, this garments doubling down thing, especially on women. Because I just think there are so many like younger women in Mormonism who are just not down for garments the way that older generations were. And I think this is going to cause more of a divide between them and the church. Like there are some people who will hear this and like double down, right? But I also think there'll be a lot of girls it will kind of have the opposite effect where they're just like, well, this is a church that like just doesn't get me then, or that like I'm just not as aligned with as I thought I was. So I'm curious to see how that plays out because it's not insignificant.
Yeah, this is just on the heels of the church, like huge social media pushback about church speaking about women. And this is definitely, it is like a widespread general issue, but it is also a women's issue in the church and the way that women's bodies are policed in Mormonism.
Because I feel like for men, like garments aren't great for anyone, but it's basically just like boxers and an undershirt, right? It's sort of a whole different thing for women because it's just like not the underwear we would be wearing if we got to choose it, and men get to choose it.
Yeah, and again, women are always like, I made that joke, but it is a literal quote from Dallin H. Oaks, the probable next president of the church, who said that women who like show too much skin are literally walking pornography.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's their attitude toward women, not like, your body is a beautiful sacred vessel of like a temple of consciousness, and people who see you should bow in your presence just at your like sheer delightfulness.
No,
like,
you're porn, which means you are an object.
Yeah, literally, you are at base level a temptation for the real people who are men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. That's what the subtext is.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dallin.
I know we have some like more progressive Mormons who watch us, and I'd be very curious to hear your opinion of this in the comments and kind of what your relationship to garments is.
Yeah, we'll see.
Is this where we...
So glad to not be wearing those.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, weird to see the shutters of control, the church feeling people slip, and the like rigor mortis. Like, wow, you gotta make sure you're wearing that all the time lest you forget. Oh, I'm just so glad I don't have to see the world as like constantly unsettling or attacking me. Like there are just like, I do like grieve all the time about how much suffering there in the world and how much can go wrong at any point. Like, don't get me wrong, but so much extra anxiety about just like normal things like coffee or masturbation or science.
Yeah.
So sad to look back on little Tanny going through that and reading through that and like the self-loathing and shaming and just being like, oh, my body is a temple and my body is like a sacred vessel to me and I love it and I care for it. And I don't have to worry about it like betraying me to Satan at any point. It's just going to be an animal. Like I don't look at Banksy and I'm like, Banksy, whatever you do not let Satan hear Banksy do on this. I'm freaking him out. Banksy, you're fine. I'm doing a bit. You know, we're just primates having a primate experience.
Yeah. Imagine thinking that you have to buy a specific thing of clothing to make your body holy. Wild.
That's what Jesus wants.
Well, as this is the closing businesses portion of the video, we still have spots open on our Costa Rica trip in September. So if you would like to join us there,
see us at our most immodest.
Yes, we will be in skimpy swimsuits. We guarantee it. So join us there. Singles, couples, you're all welcome. Also, whatever stage of faith transition you're in.
Yeah, we'll take...
Or none.
We'll take Zoroastrians, ex-Mormons, anybody.
Totally. We do not discriminate. We're also about to go read Tennis Shoes over on Patreon. So if you want to support the channel and get all of our bonus content, you can support us there. And that really helps us out. We still need more monthly donors all the time to try and become financially healthy. Patreon or PayPal.
Thanks to our current supporters. We couldn't do any of this without you. We love you so much.
We really do. We talk about you guys all the time and how grateful we are for you.
We're just constantly groveling in the group chat about you. Like, oh, they're so good to us. Thank you.
Yeah, seriously, thank you. That's the end. Bye. Goodbye, everybody. Love you guys.